This video is presented by Media Pathway. FM 21-150. War Department. Basic Field Manual. Unarmed Defense for the American Soldier. June 30, 1942. United States Government Printing Office. Washington, 1942. For sale by the Superintendent of Documents, U.S. Government Printing Office, Washington 25, D. C. Price 75 cents. G. C. Marshall. War Department, Washington. June 30, 1942. FM 21-150, Unarmed Defense for the American Soldier, is published for the information and guidance of all concerned. A. G. 062.11, 5342, 1. By order of the Secretary of War. Section 1. 1. General. 2. Basic Principles. 3. Wrist Escapes. 4. Escapes from body holds. 5. Defenses against choke holds. 6. Defenses against kicks. 7. Taking prisoners. 8. Defenses against knife and sword. 9. Defenses against blows with club, and 10. Defenses against pistol, technique of club. 11. Defenses against rifle. 12. Defenses against wrestling holds. 13. Defenses against grips on garments or hair. 14. Defenses against fist attacks. 15. Incapacitating an opponent. Section 1. General. 1. Scope. This manual describes a method of self-protection available to the American soldier, if through any circumstance he is unarmed or unable to use his weapons. 2. Purpose of training. The object of this training is to develop the soldier in the art of unarmed self-defense, and to improve his skill in the use of his basic weapons, through speeded reflexes. Confidence in his own ability unarmed, like confidence in his weapons, makes a man a better soldier. 3. Necessity for training in unarmed defense. The average soldier, if trained only in the use of his weapons, loses his effectiveness if these weapons are lost or fail to function. However, particularly in hand-to-hand fighting, if a soldier should be deprived of his weapon or have it destroyed, he is at the mercy of the enemy. This appears to apply mainly to the infantry, and probably the greatest value of American unarmed defense will be to that arm. Nevertheless, in these days of fluid warfare, troops in rear echelons, artillery, and anti-tank units might find themselves in hand-to-hand combat with no defensive weapons except sidearms and bare hands. 4. Training Program. The training of the soldier in unarmed defense requires no special equipment or uniform. Clothing will depend upon the season of the year and the state of the weather. Work outdoors is preferable since a greater number of men can be trained simultaneously. 30 minutes instruction or practice each day will make a man adept in a very short period of time. If no additional time is available, this part of the training can be integrated into the physical training program. It is desirable, in order to obtain the maximum results, that the instruction follow closely the steps outlined in this manual. However, it is realized that all units will not have the time to go through the entire book. For units with a limited time allotment for this subject, it is recommended that the following be taught. A. Section 2. Principles of Unarmed Defense. B. Section 3. 1. Escape from underarm front body hold. 2. Escape from front overarm body hold. 3. Escape from rear underarm body hold. C. Section 5. 1. Escape from two-handed front choke. 2. Escape from two-handed rear choke. 3. Escape from one-arm rear strangle. D. Section 8. 1. Defense for downward stroke of knife. 2. Defense for upward stroke of knife. 3. Defense for downward sword cut. 4. 1 defense for sword lunge. E. Section 9. 1. 1 defense for downward blow of club. 2. 1 defense for side stroke of club. 3. 1 defense for reverse stroke of club. F. Section 10. 1. 1 defense for pistol in front, right or left hand. 2. 1 defense for pistol in back, right or left hand. G. Section 11. Complete section. For military police units with limited time, it is recommended that in addition to the above, sections VI, 7, 9, 10, 12, and 14 be practiced in their entirety. 5. Background of unarmed defense. The original name of the method described in this manual has been lost in antiquity, but the art was developed by Chinese monks approximately in the 12th century. The monastic rules forbade the monks to use weapons, but as they were constantly being attacked by nomads and robber bands, they had to devise a weaponless defense, utilizing only the skill of their bodies and the quickness of their brains. Through long experiment, trial and error, and loss of life they developed a means of defense that has remained basically unchanged through centuries. Late in the 12th century, the Japanese became aware of this art and, characteristically, they copied it and claimed it as their own. They named this art Jiu-Jitsu, and established a genealogy for it which they claimed extended back to their mythological age. The Ju means gentle and Jitsu means art or practice. Therefore, Jiu-Jitsu is the gentle art. The systems taught were multitudinous and varied until the year 1882 when Professor Jigoro Kano, a man who had studied all the better systems, established the Kodokan, a school for studying the way, and called his system Judo. This name means the way, or principle. This school, with its roots in Tokyo, sent out branches throughout the civilized world. One branch, founded in 1921, had its headquarters in New York. It was called the New York Dojo, and while catering mainly to Japanese, admitted Occidentals who were interested. However, progress of the Occidentals was slow, due to the fact that their instruction was mainly in competitive work. The holds were ineffective because the correct principles were not taught. Very little of the defensive or protective tactics was taught. Since this was the type of judo in which the average American was interested, he soon dropped out of the school. A group of young Americans, disgusted with this procedure, set out to develop a system of self-defense suited to the American temperament and needs. They called their organization the American Judo Club and dedicated themselves to removing Oriental terminology from the new system. They produced as good a system as the Japanese and far outstripped it in the effectiveness of method. With a knowledge of American unarmed defense, the American soldier will be equipped to meet the judo men in the game which they have chosen to claim as their own. 6. Methods of training. A. Regulation physical training formations may be used for practice, CFM 2120. From the extended formation of 4 columns, have the first and second columns face each other and the third and fourth columns face each other. Each man will then have a partner with whom to practice. Special note should be taken that the even-numbered men do not uncover. The above formation applies to a unit the size of a platoon or larger. Any unit smaller than a platoon should be formed in a column of 2s and then have the columns face each other. It is recommended that when working throwing tricks, twice the normal distance be taken. B. The instructor will explain the attack and demonstrate the proper defense on a competent assistant, executing the movement rapidly to show its effectiveness. The defense is then executed again, as near slow motion as possible with an accompanying explanation. The attacking squads and the opposing defending squads are then designated, possibly using the letter A for attackers and letter B for defenders. At a given signal, the attackers move to the attack and the defenders attempt to work the proper defense while the assistant instructors make corrections. Emphasis should be placed on precision first. Speed can be developed later. Most of the defenses are equally effective on either side. When 2 defending squads have mastered the defense, the situation is reversed and the defending squads become attackers. Progress to a new trick is made only when the students have demonstrated a working knowledge of the previous one. No more than 3 tricks should be taught in any 30-minute period, as confusion would result. Encourage the men to practice in their spare time, emphasizing that proficiency in unarmed defense is predicated on repetition until a movement becomes almost instinctive. It is not difficult to arouse the interest of the men in this subject, since the desire to excel physically is a characteristic of the average American. Since even the smallest can be shown that his lack of size is no handicap, there will be no difficulty arising from indifference. The main problem will be to keep enthusiasts from trying more tricks than they can possibly assimilate. Another point that should be emphasized is the desirability of eliminating the stigma of the so-called foul tactic, which is usually ascribed to unarmed defense. It might be well to point out that an individual who attacks with a club, knife, gun, or any other weapon is not subscribing to any recognized rules of combat. In hand-to-hand combat, there are no referees, no judges, and no timekeeper. You are on your own. No measure of defense is too extreme when your life is in danger. The defenses in this manual might be the means of saving your life or the life of a comrade. 7. Principles of unarmed defense. It is of the utmost importance that in order to learn unarmed defense in the manner necessary to use it effectively, the principles be first mastered. A. The first principle is balance. The accompanying illustrations will be used to point out the principle of balance. Figure 1 illustrates a man in balance with his legs apart. It is shown that the individual in this position is on balance from right to left and from left to right. However, Figure 1 shows that he is definitely off balance forward, and Figure 1-3 shows that he is also off balance backward. It is usually assumed that when an individual assumes the position of the charge he is on balance all the way around. Figure 2 shows that in a position of charge with the right foot forward, the individual is on balance from right front to left rear and from left rear to right front. However, Figure 2 shows that in this position he is off balance to the right rear, and Figure 2-3 shows that he is off balance to the left front. Notice the small amount of effort required to take an individual off balance when you know in what directions he is strong and in what directions he is weak. No matter what position an individual assumes, he is off balance in some direction. B. The second principle is use of the internal oblique muscles. These muscles have been named by the Japanese Shida Hara, pronounced Stahara. The internal oblique muscles are located in the center of the body and the lower abdomen between the hip bones. The power for every defense must come or be centered in these muscles. C. Principle 3 is the ability to utilize an opponent's momentum or an opponent's strength to bring about his downfall. You always assume that your opponent is stronger than you are and never attempt to oppose him directly, but rather utilize his impetus or momentum to carry him on his way, the difference being that you direct the movement. D. Principle 4 is to attack your opponent on the spot where he is weakest with the greatest amount of power that you can concentrate on that one point. The axiom of this principle is my maximum strength against your minimum. To illustrate this point, if an opponent were to grasp your wrist, instead of trying to tear your wrist from between his fingers by main strength of your arms, you would attempt to concentrate the power of your legs, body, and arms against his fingers. E. The fifth and last principle is a knowledge of the major and minor operations. This knowledge is essential to prevent injury while practicing. The major operation means either getting out of danger or getting the essential part of a hold. The minor operation is the application of the pressure. If both of these were run together, the results might be a broken bone or other serious injury to a partner. Therefore, in practice, be judicious and apply the major and minor operations separately. Section 3. Wrist escapes. 8. Defense against two-hand overhand grip on both wrists, simple. You are grasped by the wrists in the manner illustrated in Figure 3.1. You immediately step forward with either foot, in this case, Figure 3.2, the right one, at the same time bending the arms so that the elbows are close to the lower abdomen. The escape is accomplished by straightening the legs, pulling back with the body, and pushing the arms upward in one motion, Figure 3.3. The faster this defense is worked, the more effective the escape. 9. Defense against two-hand overhand grip on both wrists, advanced. Figure 3 is the original hold. Figure 4 illustrates the first movement, in which your right hand reaches across and grasps your opponent's right wrist. Following this movement, the left wrist is pulled out of the grasp of your opponent's right hand by pushing with your right hand and pulling with your left arm. Figure 4-2 illustrates that you have reached across with your freed left hand and grasped your opponent's left wrist with your thumb up. By pushing on his left wrist, you will find no difficulty in releasing his grip on your right wrist. Figure 4-3 illustrates the completion of the defense, showing that you have lifted your opponent's left arm over his own right forearm and have him in a position where you will have no difficulty in snapping his left elbow. 10. Defense against two-handed underhand grip on both wrists. Figure 5-1 illustrates the original hold. This defense is just about the reverse of that for the two-hand overhand grip on both wrists. The elbows are again brought close to the lower abdomen and a step forward is again taken as illustrated in Figure 5-1. Then, turning the head to one side to avoid bumping heads with a hard-headed opponent, Figure 5-2, the body is bent swiftly from the waist. At the same time, pressure is brought to bear on your opponent's thumb, accomplishing the escape as in Figure 5-3. 11. Defense against left-hand grip on right wrist, or right-hand grip on left wrist, simple. Figure 6-1 illustrates the original hold. Your attacker has grasped your right wrist with his left hand. Your immediate action is to pull your left elbow close to your internal oblique muscles, see paragraph 7b, step forward with your right foot, and by pushing with your body, attempt to touch your right elbow against your opponent's left elbow, at the same time turning the palm of your hand toward the floor as illustrated in Figure 6-2. Figure 6-3 illustrates the completion of the escape, showing that your right hand is then in position to be brought smartly across your opponent's neck. 12. Defense against left-hand grip on right wrist, or right-hand grip on left wrist, advanced. The original hold is the same as in Figure 6-1. This time, however, your defense will be such that you can take your opponent prisoner. Reach across with your left hand and grasp your attacker's left wrist as illustrated in Figure 7-1. Then, by bringing your elbows as close to your Shita Hara as possible, you will turn your opponent's left hand to your left, applying pressure against his thumb as illustrated in Figure 7-2. As you turn the wrist, the thumb of your left hand is placed in the center of the knuckles on the back of your opponent's hand. As soon as your opponent has been forced to turn his back partially to you, you will then reinforce the hold with your left hand with an identical one right hand. This will bring you to the position illustrated in Figure 7-3. The close-up in Figure 7-4 shows you the proper hold on your opponent's hand. The pressure, when it is necessary, will be applied toward your opponent's forearm rather than to either side. Your elbows will be kept close to your side. All pressure will emanate from the Shita Hara. You can now march your opponent anywhere you see fit. He is your prisoner. 13. Defense against two-hand grip on one wrist. Figure 8-1 illustrates your opponent grasping your right wrist with both his hands. Now step forward with your right leg, bending both knees, body upright, and bring your right elbow close to your Shita Hara. Your left hand will reach across and grasp your right fist. The position is illustrated in Figure 8-2. By straightening your legs, pulling back with the power of your body and of your arms, pressure is brought to bear on your opponent's thumbs, forcing him to release his hold. Figure 8-3 illustrates opponent grasping your right wrist overhand with his left hand. Your immediate reaction is to reach across with your left hand and grasp his wrist with your thumb uppermost, at the completion of the escape, placing you in position to retaliate with a backhand with the edge of your right hand to your opponent's jaw or neck. 14. Defense against right-hand grip on right wrist, or left-hand grip on left wrist. In the case illustrated by Figure 9-1, your opponent has grasped your right wrist with his right hand. Your immediate reaction is to grasp his right wrist with your right hand, taking a long step to his right rear with your left foot, pulling his right arm underneath your left arm as illustrated in figure 9-2. Wrapping your upper arm over your opponent's upper arm and bringing your forearm or wrist underneath a spot about 1 inch above his elbow, you will then clamp your left hand on your chest as illustrated in figure 9-3. You are now in position to bring pressure on either your opponent's elbow or his ulnar nerve by pulling up with your left forearm and pushing down with your right arm. This will force your opponent to his toes and give you complete control of the situation. Care should be taken in working this defense, since it is very easy to break an arm utilizing this procedure. 15. Defense against left-hand grip on right wrist, or right-hand grip on left wrist, fingers uppermost. Figure 10-1 illustrates the original hold, showing your opponent grasping your right wrist overhand with his left hand. Your immediate reaction is to reach across with your left hand and grasp his wrist with your thumb uppermost, at the same time stepping forward with your right foot as illustrated in figure 10-2. You then prevent him from releasing the grip on your wrist by pulling with your left hand, keeping it closed to your right. You then endeavor to place your right elbow on your opponent's left elbow by pushing with the body and arm and continuing the pressure. This will bring him to the position illustrated in figure 10-3 or completely to the ground. If done rapidly, it can also result in a broken arm. 16. Defense against right-hand grip on right wrist, or left-hand grip on left wrist, fingers uppermost. This, on the surface, appears to be the same hold as in figure 10-1, but it is not, since in one case the grip is with the hand on the same side, and in this case the grip is from the hand on the opposite side as illustrated in figure 11-1, where your opponent is grasping your right wrist with his right hand. Your first action is to place your right hand on your right biceps and your left forearm over the back of your opponent's hand, preventing him from releasing his grip, as illustrated in figure 11-2. Continue the movement of your left hand to the right, bringing it over the back of his right hand, under your right forearm, and locking it on your right biceps as illustrated in figure 11-3. Holding him close to your chest, it is a simple matter to bend from the waist and thus force your opponent to his knees.